Welcome back to another episode of the Working in Hockey Show. I'm your host, Nick Bowins, and today's guest has spent a lot of years around the game of hockey, playing hockey operations, general manager, and today, president of the American Hockey League, Scott Howson. Scott, how are you? How's the summer been so far?
Hi, Nick. It's been good. It gives you time to take a little deep breath. Our season goes long. We start, in mid-September, really gearing up, and we go past the Stanley Cup traditionally by a few days, and we did that again this year. So it's a long season. It's nice to have a little break.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to get right into things here with your current role, again, president of the AHL. How did kind of the first couple of years go on the job here, Scott? Obviously, pandemic happened right after you took the role here. What were the first couple of years like, becoming commissioner of one of the biggest professional hockey leagues in the world?
Yeah, it was a challenging time for everybody. I got the job May 1st, and I was supposed to transition with the former president, Dave Andrews, the longtime former president of the AHL, but the pandemic had hit, and I basically stayed put. I was in Columbus, Ohio, where we lived for a long time, and didn't get to Springfield until I think September or October. And the season was very much in doubt. We'd already postponed the season once. I think we postponed it again, and then we were lucky enough to get it going in early February and got some hockey in. And I was very proud of our league, proud of our ownership group, grateful for the support of the NHL to be able to get our players on the ice. You probably remember minor league baseball missed a whole season. The players didn't play. And we were able to get our some semblance of a season in. No Calder Cup, no playoffs of any importance, but our players did get on the ice for some games. So I was proud of that.
Absolutely, yeah, and you got your feet under you there, and obviously it's been a couple successful years since. The talent on the ice is fabulous. It's maybe as good as it's ever been. The coverage of the league is, again, blowing up, a lot of expansion on that side of things. How do you look at the state of the AHL today, Scott, and some of the wins that you've had along the way here?
Yeah, well, you hit the nail on the head. It starts with the product. The product is really good. The players are phenomenal at all levels of hockey. I think the game has just gotten better and better. We see it at the NHL. We certainly see it at the AHL. If I compare the speed and the skill of the game to even when I came in 5 years ago, it's still significantly better. So proud of that. We came out of the pandemic really strong from a business point of view. Our attendance went up, our revenue went up, our team revenues went up. So that was really good. And I think that wasn't anything we did special. I think a lot of sports experienced that. Nobody was sure, were people going to want to come back and gather in buildings? Nobody knew what was going to happen. And we all came back very strong, which shows what the appetite for quality sporting entertainment is. And we're continuing to progress and continuing to grow. And that's really the main objective, is to continue to make sure our teams are growing and that the league's operating in a fair, efficient manner.
Absolutely, yeah, and the product, it seems to only continue to get better. I was fortunate enough to go to a couple of Marlies games on their run here this summer, and the talent on the ice all through the playoffs was phenomenal. But I'm curious, Scott. I'm sure you get asked a lot about your day, what a day looks like. No days are the same. We know that. But being the AHL, there's a lot of correspondence with the NHL above you guys, the ECHL below. What's kind of the correlation between the leagues on a daily or weekly basis there? How much are you focused on the AHL day to day versus, being in touch with those other leagues that you guys work so closely with?
Well, the NHL is certainly a major stakeholder in our league. 20 of our teams are owned by NHL teams. And, from the development of officials and coaches and players and the transactions that happen every day. So anything of importance, I'm certainly, I got my antenna up to make sure I'm in contact. Bill Daly's my contact with the NHL. There'll be times where I talk to him 3 or 4 times in a week, and then there'll be times where I don't need to talk to him for a couple of weeks. But so constant contact with them. And certainly Bill sits on our executive committee, which I find to be very valuable, so that he's apprised of all the major things that are going on in our league. And then we've established a regular rapport with the ECHL, Ryan Creelan, who's the commissioner there. We consolidated the rule books, tried to make sure the rules are the same because the players go back and forth. There are some obviously different circumstances where you can't align all the rules, but we tried to make sure that that was a project that we completed, and we're constantly talking with Ryan about the affiliations and how it works for their league. Their league's different. Their league's not owned by any NHL teams, maybe one or two. I'm not sure. Well, I guess one now. Florida is owned by the new Penguins ownership group. So it's a different mindset, but we do have regular contact with them. So that would comprise a little bit of what I do, but mostly I'm focused on making sure our leagues operated fairly, efficiently. We're doing things here at the league office that serve our teams.
Yeah, absolutely. And we touched on the talent on the ice, the coverage off the ice, both areas that are blossoming for the AHL. How do you continue that here, Scott? It's a digital age where attention's getting driven in a lot of different areas for kids and youth today. How do you continue to get eyeballs on the league, grow the business side of the league here? What are some things that you're looking to do over the next couple of years here with the league?
Yeah, we've got to be aware of all. I think you think about technology and AI, and what are we missing? What can we do? We're primarily focused on making sure and providing resources to our teams where they are. Not so much as what the league can do on its own. We do have a very healthy business staff here that generates significant revenue, but we're also very focused on what we can do to help our teams, whether that's, ticketing software or ticketing marketing initiatives. So that's sort of where our focus is and where our teams want us to put our resources so that they can succeed. And that's from a business side, that's certainly where we would put our focus on it. And the hockey, I don't want to say it takes care of itself. The NHL teams are so, focused on making sure their hockey operations are exactly how they want it. Each NHL team, that we're 32, and each NHL team has a full affiliate. Whether they own the team or not, they control the hockey ops. And, they're so diligent about making sure that their development system is working for them, because we see how important it is to the NHL teams that you have to develop. If you're going to pay Macklin Celebrini and Leo Carlson the money that they're going to make, you better have some other young players coming up that can play at significantly less salaries, and that's where the AHL comes into.
Definitely, yes. And you touch on there, Scott, 20 of the 32 teams are owned by the NHL clubs there. Operationally, and from your perspective, how much changes day to day, if anything, for those teams who are owned by the NHL club versus not?
It really varies. Some teams, the 12 teams that are not are those 12 owners are more focused on the business side of the equation, because that's what it is for them. It's not, it's a partnership with an NHL team, and they cede control of the hockey operations, but they're more focused on the business. And then you get a wide range from our teams. Everybody wants to do really well business wise, and then some just do better than others. We've got a flagship franchise in Laval, and if we could replicate what Laval does off the ice from a business point of view with all of our other teams, we'd be so much farther ahead. So it depends on the market. It depends on the NHL team. But what we saw really coming out of the lockout in 04-05, and development became so important under a cap system, we saw NHL teams want to buy teams and also want to really focus on their development.
Absolutely. And I want to take it back towards yourself a little bit here. Again, played professionally and then went back to school, Scott, pursued law for a while there. What was the kind of decision and process of, wrapping up your playing days, getting into law there? Did you know you were going to find your way back into the game, or kind of take me back there?
Yeah, very much a learning experience for me. I had completed 2 years of my undergraduate degree while I was playing. I did it through summer and correspondence work. So I was grateful that, I wasn't behind the eight ball there. And then that year out of hockey, I was 25 years old. My first year out of hockey, I finished my undergraduate degree, and that kind of gave me time to get my feet on the ground with a new life. And I just decided, well, I want to pursue higher education, and law seemed like a natural fit for me. So I was fortunate enough to get into law school, fortunate enough to work at a big Toronto firm coming out of law school. Really enjoyed my time there at a firm called Torrey's in Toronto. But I knew, once I started in law school and then working as a lawyer, I knew if there was an opportunity to get back in hockey. And then I was able to apply for a general manager's job in the AHL through the Edmonton Oilers, and got hired there, and then worked with the Oilers for a long, long.
And you mentioned there, apply for the role of general manager. I think that's something that doesn't happen as much here today. What was that process like and transition like getting into, again, going from playing law school and now, boom, you're a general manager at the AHL level?
Yeah, the way it happened was, it's an interesting story. Is that Glenn Sather was running the Oilers, and we had an old arbitration system, player arbitration system, where if somebody signed a free agent, if you couldn't agree on the compensation, you put forward your compensation in front of an arbitrator. And it just so happened that Hartford signed Stephen Rice away from the Oilers, and they couldn't agree on the compensation. So Glenn hired our firm in Toronto to argue his case, and that's how they ended up with getting Brian Marchment from the Hartford Whalers at the time. We won that case. So I got to meet Glenn then, and it was during that period that he needed a general. Dave Andrews, who was my predecessor here, was the general manager in Cape Breton for 4 or 5 years, and Nova Scotia, and he had left to take this job, the president's job. And so there was a vacancy there, and I expressed my interest to Glenn, and was able to get the job. I was a young lawyer at the time, and I was single at the time. I was able to change careers. I'm not sure I would have been able to do that if I had stayed in Toronto as a lawyer for another 3 or 4 years, but it worked out well, and moved to Cape Breton. So this Toronto boy moved to Cape Breton, and whole new experience, and spent 2 years in Cape Breton before we moved the team to Hamilton, which was a great move personally for me because I got married at the time and my wife and I are from Toronto. So we were home for a few more years.
That's awesome, and it's crazy how the world works and a small world that hockey is, right? With the connection
Yes.
to Glenn Hitter. I'm sure we could do another whole conversation just on the small world that is the hockey world. But
Yeah.
you mentioned moving back to Hamilton there. Excited for the new Hamilton Hammers franchise in Hamilton as well. But and then you joined the Edmonton Oilers there shortly there afterwards. Scott's in an increased capacity. What was that first experience like working at the NHL level with the Oilers?
Well, that was the goal of mine. I think it took me 2 years in Cape Breton and another 3 or 4 in Hamilton. But at the time, um, Glenn had left. Glenn was in the process of leaving for the Rangers, and um, Kevin Lowe took over. And good lesson for everybody is, I always tell young people when they're looking for jobs is, whatever you're doing, do it well, because you don't know who's looking at you. I didn't know Kevin Lowe very well. I'd met him a couple times. He ended up being the coach of the Oilers, assistant coach, and then the coach of the Oilers. And then all of a sudden he was the general manager. So I didn't have much contact with him when I was running the farm team. I had a little contact with him, but he reached out as soon as he became the GM, and asked me to come to Edmonton. And that's how I got to Edmonton. And it was, a dream come true. You're in the NHL. You're a significant part of the management team. And Kevin and I were a great match. I had some strengths that he probably didn't have, and he had, wonderful playing experience and Stanley Cup winning pedigree, and all those other things that made him so successful. So it was a good match, and I really enjoyed my time working with them. And we ended up getting you might remember, we ended up getting the Stanley Cup Finals against the Carolina Hurricanes, and went to Game 7 and lost. So that was a disappointment. But I always say to everybody, the Edmonton Oilers have been very good to me, and a lot of what I have in my life is due to my experience with the Edmonton Oilers. So I'm very grateful.
That's very cool. And it's obviously, again, a special city and a special franchise to be part of there. And you mentioned the 0405 lockout there before. I know you were part of the Edmonton Roadrunners, one of my favorites, 1 year teams there as well. Great logo when they were in Edmonton during the lockout. After that, Scott, I know you were with the Columbus Blue Jackets there, of course. Talk to me a little bit about Columbus as a hockey market, because I think that's a city that still to this day gets slept on how much people love hockey there. What was the experience like in Columbus?
Terrific experience. The team unfortunately hasn't had a lot of success. When I got there, we were able to make the playoffs for the very first time, and I still remember walking into the very first home playoff game and what an experience that was for the fans and for everybody associated with the franchise. But Columbus is a terrific market. We lived there for 10 or 12 years. My kids grew up there basically through school. We got them all through high school in Columbus. Wonderful place to live. I can't say enough great things about Columbus. You got Ohio State there and Ohio State football, and the city is really growing. Even since I got there in '07, and it's 20 years later, it's a different city now. But as far as a hockey market, those fans have supported that team through thick and thin, and they've really built a nice following there. And I'm excited for when they do become a perennial contender, which I'm hopeful that at some point they will, and have that 6, 7, 8 year run where you're challenging for the Stanley Cup.
Definitely. No, that city deserves it, and they will eat it up as soon as they get there. I know you returned to the Oilers after that, Scott, as well, in some various roles across hockey operations. But fast forwarding past that a little bit here for you, we talked actually recently with Chris Lamorello about the expansion of hockey ops departments. And, from your perspective, from, 94, 95, when you first came in there through today, how much have hockey operations departments and the perspective the teams have and the number of roles teams have there grown? How has hockey operations shifted over the time of your career?
It's completely different. You used to have one assistant general manager. Now some teams have three or four, and they all have, they're all busy. It's not like there's nothing to do. There's all kinds of aspects of hockey operations where you've got to have somebody. The general manager can't do it all. It was such a smaller shop back in the mid '90s. The cap came in, and that created a whole new dynamic for front offices. I would say the biggest change is just the role of the analytics too, and how much I think we're behind the other sports, some of the other sports anyway, certainly behind baseball, but it's growing now, and the teams are putting more resources and more people on it, and there's more information available that really smart people can get their hands on. So it's just become a much bigger operation, and the general manager's job now is a lot different than it was 30 years ago, way different. And I've always said to people, you're managing people is what you're doing as you get up the food chain, and managing people's hard, and you just have a lot more people that you have to manage now as a general.
Definitely no, and it only continues to grow, like you said, with analytics as well. I always like to ask Scott, and you're uniquely qualified to answer this, I think. What's an area of the game that you see expanding over the next couple of years? More roles being hired, more people being needed. Is it analytics there? I'd say the last couple of years have been really on the sports science, recovery, nutrition side of things. We've seen a lot of roles open up. What's the next wave?
Yeah, if I was predicting, I would say that there's going to be more and more teams that are going to get on. Some teams are a lot farther ahead in the analytics and the data gathering, and you make a good point. Data science too is part of all this for me. So I think that whole how we gather information and process information and use information to make our teams better is probably the biggest area of growth.
Putting you on the spot with this one, Scott, but I'm sure there's lots of roles, lots of answers to this one, but is there a role behind the scenes that fans don't realize just how much work it is and how much time those guys and girls put in?
Those video coaches put a
Yeah.
lot of hours in, and I'm always not amazed, but they put a lot of hours in. They serve a lot of people. You get on a flight after a game, and the video coaches are getting the assistant coaches what they need, the head coach what he needs. Um, And then you have the added responsibility now of they've got to make snap decisions during the game and tell the coach if they want a challenge for video review. So they put a lot of time in. The whole coaching fraternity. I mean, those guys make every nickel they earn. That is just from the head coach to the assistant coaches, to the video coaches, to the strength coaches. The time that they put in. I mean, they're there they're there on a regular home day. They're there 6, 7 o'clock getting ready for practice and then staying well beyond that. And the pressure on the coaches. People don't understand the pressure. It comes at you in the NHL. It comes at you daily. And if your team's struggling and, you've got a game in a day and then you lose that game, then you got another game the next day, it just comes at you. It's relentless. And I have a lot of respect for what those coaches have to go through.
I couldn't agree more. I've heard a couple times the phrase "when players are sleeping, coaches are studying," and I think that you framed it well there as well. But Scott, this has been awesome, and can't thank you enough for taking the time to walk through your career here. The last thing that I always ask: what would be the best piece of advice you could give somebody looking to break into the hockey industry?
Yeah, we get asked this question a lot, and I would say get to know people, build relationships. No job is too small if you're looking to enter. No job is too small. Get in front of people. And as I said previously, whatever you're doing, even if it's something that you're not overly excited about, like I don't want to do this forever, do it well, because you don't know who's looking. And I'm an example of that with Kevin. Like I said, Kevin didn't know me. And there I was running the farm team for him as a coach and with the Oilers. And he's the guy that gave me my break into the NHL. So he obviously saw something, and be where there's a saying, be where your feet are, and do the best job you possibly can, and get in and get to know people.
That's phenomenal.
Relationships too. It's relationships.
Phenomenal advice. Like you say, it's we're in a people business. It's a small world. There's only so many people in it, but we are in a people business. So I couldn't agree more with that, Scott. And again, thank you so much for the time here today. To our listeners, viewers, thanks for tuning into this week's episode, and we'll catch you next week on the Working in Hockey Show.